Welcome to Strategic Order. This is not a channel about headlines. This is a channel about what hides behind them. In a world where wars are no longer always announced with bombs, but with sanctions, pressure, and control over resources, power moves quietly until it reshapes the global order. Tonight, we turn our focus to Venezuela, a nation with the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, a country pushed to the edge of collapse, and a battlefield where global powers test how far they can go without triggering open war. Is Venezuela truly falling? Is the United States positioning itself to control the world's most valuable energy reserves? And are we witnessing the early signals of a conflict that could redraw the map of the world? This is not speculation for shock. This is strategic analysis. You're watching Strategic Order, where power, resources, and global consequences are examined without illusion. The U.S. moves toward the world's largest oil reserves. Is this the beginning of World War III? The world rarely collapses overnight. It unravels slowly through political decisions, economic pressure, and silent battles over resources that are never officially declared as war, yet feel exactly like one. The early years of this decade mark a turning point in modern geopolitics. Venezuela, the country with the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, has once again become the center of global attention. Not because of recovery, not because of stability, but because of its growing vulnerability amid intensifying pressure from the world's major powers. The real question is no longer what is happening in Venezuela, but what Venezuela represents to the world. And more unsettling still, is Venezuela's collapse merely the opening chapter of a much larger global conflict? Venezuela, a nation rich enough to be fought over. With more than 300 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, Venezuela officially surpasses Saudi Arabia, Iran, and even Russia. In modern geopolitics, this number is far more than an energy statistic. It is power. Oil is not just fuel. It is leverage. It is economic weaponry. It is the backbone of global stability. The nation that controls energy controls the direction of the world. Yet for years, Venezuela has spiraled into a multidimensional crisis. Its economy collapsed, inflation soared, oil production plummeted, infrastructure decayed, and millions of citizens were forced to flee their homeland. This crisis is often explained as the result of internal mismanagement. But many analysts argue it is the consequence of a dangerous intersection between domestic weakness and external pressure. When a resource-rich state weakens, the world does not look away. The world moves closer. The United States and an interest that never disappeared. To Washington, Venezuela is not merely a troubled Latin American state. It is a strategic energy node in the global system. For decades, relations between the United States and Venezuela have been defined by tension, sanctions, export restrictions, diplomatic isolation, and sustained economic pressure. Over time, these actions formed a familiar pattern: weaken the state, then reshape the balance of power. Officially, these measures are justified as efforts to defend democracy, enforce the rule of law, and restore stability. But from a colder geopolitical perspective, energy interests have always remained just beneath the surface. As Venezuela's internal control weakened, external influence expanded. And in the modern world, control does not require military occupation. Control today is exercised through investment channels, export permissions, financial systems, political recognition, and corporate dominance. This is where a disturbing narrative emerges. Is the United States positioning itself to shape, or even dominate, the future of Venezuela's oil sector? Oil, not ideology, is the true battlefield. Modern wars rarely begin with declarations. They begin with supply chains. Despite its collapsed production, Venezuela's oil remains one of the most valuable long-term strategic assets on Earth. Should production ever be restored through capital, technology, and political restructuring, the power that holds influence over these reserves would gain enormous geopolitical leverage. That is why Venezuela has become a silent battleground. On one side, the United States and its allies see an opportunity to secure future energy supplies, Reduce global dependence on rival power blocks. Strengthen dominance in the global energy order. On the other, Russia and China view Venezuela as both a strategic foothold and a symbol of resistance against Western hegemony. This struggle rarely manifests on battlefields. Instead, it plays out in boardrooms, sanctions lists, UN Security Council vetoes, and global media narratives. Has Venezuela already fallen? Collapse is rarely a single dramatic moment. It is a gradual loss of control. When national policy is no longer fully decided at home. When strategic industries depend on external approval. When sovereignty erodes quietly, agreement by agreement. In this sense, Venezuela's fall is not about who governs today, but about who will shape its future tomorrow. And at the center of that future lies oil. The shadow of World War III. Every generation has its defining fear. Ours is the fear of a global war that arrives without warning. If World War III ever begins, it is unlikely to resemble the wars of the past. There will be no clear front lines. No formal declarations. Instead, there will be interconnected regional conflicts, competition over strategic resources, economic warfare across continents, indirect confrontations between nuclear powers. In this context, Venezuela is not the cause. It is a symptom of a world growing more polarized, more competitive, and increasingly willing to sacrifice weaker states in the pursuit of dominance. Has World War III already begun? Not openly. Not yet. But many analysts agree on one point. The global system is entering a far more dangerous and unpredictable phase. The human cost often ignored. Behind every grand geopolitical narrative lies a human tragedy. Millions of Venezuelans have paid the price for this struggle, through hunger, medical shortages, mass migration, and the collapse of basic services. They are not players in this global chess game. They are its casualties. History reminds us that when great powers fight over resources, the suffering of ordinary people is often dismissed as collateral damage. Conclusion: a world at a crossroads. Venezuela is a mirror, a reflection of the world we now inhabit. Venezuela is not just a crisis. It is a signal of a world where power is no longer measured only by armies, but by energy, influence, and control over the future. What happens next in Venezuela will not remain in Venezuela. Its consequences will ripple through global markets, alliances, and the balance of power itself. The question is not whether the world is changing. It already has. The question is who will shape that change, and at what cost. At Strategic Order, we don't tell you what to think. We examine how power moves, why it moves, and who it ultimately serves. If you want to understand the forces shaping tomorrow's world, stay with us. This is Strategic Order.